Southland, wild week at a time. SCV chat starts now.
Hello.
Now,
Like right now?
like right now, because it's been a week. Like we don't even have the full. There we go. All right, yeah, that's 7 o'clock snuck up on us very quickly. Before we get started, the views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of the SCV, its GEC, any division, brigades, camp, subsidiaries, or its executive director, if he's even watching. Strictly those of us who are expressing them. And hello, Moose.
Hello, GCB.
Hi, Moose. All right, so starting off tonight's episode very differently. Before we get started, got a little bit of a clip that we're going to share from that wonderful, and I'm being very sarcastic when I say wonderful, movie documentary that Ken Burns made. But it of course has Shelby Foote in it, so we've got to include a Shelby Foote video actually talking about the man we're celebrating tonight. So give me just a second. And
he's often described as a bloodless pedant, a man who filled all his time with small-time paperwork and never anything else, an icy cold man who had no friendliness in him. I found the opposite to be true in all those respects. Davis is an outgoing, friendly man, a great family man, loved his wife and children, infinite store of compassion. Lee said it best. He said, I don't think anyone could name anyone who could have done a better job than Davis did, and I personally don't know of anyone who could have done as good a job. That's from Robert E. Lee, which is pretty good authority.
Love that, and it's still playing in my background. And that just really threw me for a loop. But love that quote from Shelby Foote, of course, historian and author Shelby Foote from that documentary series. But talking about Lee's respect for Davis and everything like that. And of course, today is President Davis's birthday, the 3rd of June. I believe it's his 200, and I'm trying to do math in my health. Yeah, there we go, 216. You'd already done the math. I was trying to subtract. So good job.
I've had to post happy 216th birthday so many times today that I know it by heart now.
You've had to post, or you got to post?
I got to post.
There we go. So yeah, very, very happy to do that. Just as a reminder for those who are interested in a couple of t-shirts. If you are wanting to get some t-shirts, some merchandise, some unique merchandise, hold on before you bring that up. I didn't tell you to bring that up yet. There we go. Remember that we are having a sale on the All We Ask Is to Be Let Alone, the Leave Dixie Alone is what we call it, t-shirt. Use the code BDAY at checkout, and we'll show you how to do that here in a second. But use the code BDAY at checkout to receive 10% off of this shirt. Now you can bring it up.
You can go to scvchat.com, hit the Support Us tab. First, you'll be showing our lovely Patreon. Yeah.
Which we're up to 12.
Yes. Just $10 a month, and you get a lot of cool perks. And we'll talk about that more soon.
In fact, fun fact, we got an email from Patreon earlier today that our first person who signed up for Patreon is about to get his real chat head sticker.
Ooh.
So yeah, so he can put that on his car, he can put it on his notebook, he can whatever, but his real chat head commemorative sticker showing that you are a real chat head. But anyway, back to the Jeff Davis t-shirt. Scroll on down to the Leave Dixie Alone shirt.
So you can scroll down. You can, of course, go to the overall store by clicking the red chat head shirt to the right of the screen. But if you don't feel like doing that, you can just scroll all the way down, see all of our wonderful t-shirts, click the t-shirt, and you can't see it because it's another share screen, but it pops up on our Bonfire store. You can get the t-shirt. Do you want me to pull that up?
I'll go ahead. You pull yours down. I'll pull mine up.
All right.
All right. So then boom, and then share. So we have, this is of course the front. It has SCV chat on the front. It has the back. We've got it. We have the comfort color and the premium tees. All of them are in the Army colors. So we have yellow for the Army of Tennessee, gray for just the overall Confederation, red for the ANV, and blue for the ATM. Of course, we have it in the comfort colors, the gray, the blue, the crimson, and the butter. That's the closest thing they had. But all you have to do is you go to add to cart, and then you go to see cart and check out. I'm not sure what that one is. And then check out with card. Oh, I got to select my size. Haha. I'm just picking a size because we do have big guy sizes. Now, right here where it says promotion code BDAY, and then apply, and then boom, that's that 10% off. So yeah, so get, if you want to support us, do that. But also, we have another shirt that you did not mention.
I was getting to
on
it.
Thursday. On Thursday. You didn't mention it on Thursday.
I mentioned it.
All right. So we got permission to do a limited edition run of the the UC or USCV, the United Sons of Confederate Veterans, the old logo. A lot of y'all said that y'all were interested in getting some shirts with it on it. So we have a limited edition run. We have the front shirt where it's on the front of the shirt, and we have the back of the shirt. So on the one that's the back shirt, it's just a plain t-shirt, but on the back has a little bit bigger of the old school logo. The money that we are making off of these shirts is going to be donated to the museum. And a couple of people have already bought I think one person's bought a front and has bought a back. But those shirts are a little bit more expensive, strictly because we're doing it as a museum fundraiser. So get those shirts. Don't do it right now. Stay tuned in for the rest of the show. But later on, go to the scvchat.com, support us, and
hit the tab. Click on the t-shirt you want, and it will send you straight to the store.
And again, I'm going to go ahead and I pulled it up. If you want to let me present my screen. So again, these shirts are available in the gray, in the red, in the blue, and in the yellow. Oh, I forgot to mention, because it's a limited edition and you may want to, I don't know, wear it during the winter.
Boom.
Got it in a long sleeve. The long sleeve, the yellow is more of a gold for that, so it's not like the other ones. But yeah, I'm probably going to get a red one of this one, just because I like how that looks. But hey, we will stop selling these. We will stop selling these after National Reunion. So when National Reunion ends on that Saturday night, these shirts will go away forever from us.
So yeah, make sure you go to scvchat.com, hit the support us tab, maybe check out our Patreon, but more importantly, go support these shirts. Again,
our Patreon has an exclusive where we're doing I'm trying not to reveal the name of the book, but we have an exclusive where we're reading a book. We're reading a book and we're taking notes on it. See my notes, and I'm not even like a full, third or quarter of the way done.
Yeah, Carl recommended a very long book for us to start out with, the Moose Journey. What are we calling it? The Moose Journey?
The Moosehead Book Club.
The Moosehead Book Club, where we will be reviewing a book as we go on a journey for me to grow historical knowledge and be an actual historian.
See my tabs?
Yeah, a lot of tabs. I just have a notebook that I'm writing stuff in.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can read later.
I write in the margins. And then learn something and then call everybody who's in on it. And I'm like, hey, guess what I've learned about XYZ now?
Some crazy stuff in that book.
At least in the first section. But you're not going to know about it unless you join Patreon. Gerald Nelson knows about it because he's on Patreon. Well, if he's reading the Patreon. I know David Pope knows about it.
Yeah, so make sure you're in the page. We got a notification live on air. Todd Owens has joined our Patreon.
Hey, thank you, Todd.
So yeah, we'll add you to the end credits, and you'll get, of course, a couple other perks. So yeah.
Carl, bring Carl's comment up.
Better Connor than me.
If I have to keep it PG with what I've learned thus far, yeah. But that's the other thing on the Patreon, because the first section we're having to do Moose doesn't know this. He surprised me with this, but I'm surprising him with this. We're doing a podcast review of the first section of the book.
I already knew we were doing that.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that one may be PG-13.
Yeah, I'll have to hit the explicit tab on that. That's going to be interesting, and of course, our Patreon get to listen to it first. So
yeah,
make sure to join our Patreon.
Bunch of
Dr. Mitchum says I'm not stupid enough to be a historian. You would be surprised, Dr. Mitchum.
Sorry, I had to jump off screen for a second and get something out of my system. But yeah, so those are ways that you can support us here at the channel. That's a way that you can help support our organization. I will say this, that from the just the logo t-shirts, we have raised $41 from the logo t-shirts for the museum. So get ordering.
Get to ordering. I mean, we just started that though, so
yeah. So we just got permission. Of course, as we've mentioned before, we do not use any of the copyrighted logos without the express permission, because we like to do that. We like to be doing right. But anyway, before we get kicked off on talking about President Davis, we have to do something very special. Of course, we have President Davis up in the upper right-hand corner or left-hand corner. My right. I'm assuming it's y'all's right. Maybe it's y'all's left. Veteran of actually, I tell you what. We will save the Veteran of the Week. We had one selected, but we will save one. We'll save him for next week and keep President Davis up there. David Pope asks, any news tonight? No real news as far as what's going on in Chatland. We're getting ready to go to the national reunion in Charleston, South Carolina. It's going to be a good reunion. Looking forward to doing the broadcast for that there from South Carolina, possibly some other places when we travel over. So do that. I know a bunch of divisions had reunions this weekend. I was at the Alabama division reunion. Florida had theirs, and I believe Georgia also had theirs this weekend. So I hope that everybody had good traveling graces. I enjoyed my time in Alabama. I had to leave around 11 o'clock, or not 11 o'clock, excuse me, about 12 o'clock in order to head over to Beauvoir for the Jefferson Davis birthday celebration, which was very, very good. I will say this as a reminder that we do have constitutional amendments as well as officer elections this upcoming reunion. So we're in June now. So you've got, this is, if your camp has not discussed the constitutional amendments that are being proposed, this month is the month. Take some time out to read them, to inform yourselves, to discuss it as a camp, and if you and give your delegates an idea on how you want your camps to represent you at the national reunion. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We're not going to talk about how we feel about any of the amendments on this show, but we will say that national reunions are a lot of fun, but they're also when that's the time that we do our business as an organization. So read those amendments, get familiar with them, and be prepared for the work. Do the work of the organization. Oh, and Moose is doing the oratory for Mississippi.
I'd forgotten about that.
I didn't.
I 100% forgot about that.
I'm retired.
Y'all are in for a disaster. I feel bad for everybody in attendance. Speaking of which, I gotta start getting some of my things.
Yeah,
I gotta get my tie.
Yeah. Another question. Potential shirt. We may do this as a Patreon exclusive, but just want everybody's opinion on this.
Oh. No, Jack, we are not broadcasting the oratory for multiple reasons, but one of them is definitely because I don't want to stink up the joint.
And number two is that the oratory is the oratory. It's something you have to experience in person.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants that broadcast. That's kind of when we all let loose. I know I stole Adam's wallet last year. So I don't think we want all the stupid things we've done at the oratory to get out.
Yeah, you gotta come to it. Hi, Commander-in-Chief Jason Boshears. I hope that you had fun up in Virginia at the massing of the flags. It looked like you had a good time standing all up there, looking all pretty.
Look, he's saying 46 days till reunion, like he's counting it down almost. I wonder why.
I get to see him this weekend.
Oh yeah, you are coming down. I forgot about that. I'm also over here trying to share the chat episode, so I've been distracted.
Yeah. Todd, we mentioned that we mentioned it as we got the notification in.
I got a notification, Todd. We thank you so much. You get to figure out what book we're reading, and get to
but you can't tell anybody.
Can't tell anybody. It's a Patreon exclusive.
Hey, and Todd, guess what? You're lucky number 13.
Oh yeah. Well, help us out if we can get a couple more. We should be able to do a podcast on this, but not for certain. So definitely, as many of you that can, please support us on Patreon.
Speaking of podcast, if you are missing, if you want to re-listen to this episode or any other episodes that we've had in the past, if you missed one, we do upload the audio only for wherever you listen to podcasts at. I think we're even on Apple now. So go and listen to the podcast version of the show. What we're wanting to do with Patreon is once we get up to 100 patrons a month, so that's 87 more, then we will dedicate a weekly, probably on Tuesdays, a weekly podcast episode where we talk about things. Yeah,
and I mean that's really for us to be able to break even on the podcast world,
right? Right. So just like how we use StreamYard to broadcast out everywhere. So that's the software we use to multicast on YouTube and Facebook. We use a software like that for our podcast, and we're only allowed so many free uploads a month. So this way we'll be able to purchase extra uploads. So
yeah. So we definitely need the help. Please do it. I will be uploading a couple episodes, so I'll give everybody a treat, and we'll upload a look around episode, and of course this will be uploaded. But if you're having trouble finding the podcast, you might be wondering why SCVchat.com is up. Well, click episodes, hit podcast, and you can listen to the SCV Chat podcasts or the audio versions of the Monday show right now on the website, or you can go down to our many platforms that we are on. Of course, our host platforms, Spreaker, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all these. And we're even on a podcast platform in India. So, yeah, go check out scvchat.com. Someone put some good time into that. I don't know who, but he did. that Stonewall caught me completely off guard.
Well, that's part of Stonewall Jackson's legacy. Hey, really quickly, we're going to take a short commercial break. But before we do, we need to pay the bills so we can get into our tonight's topic about Jefferson Davis. This season's sponsor is, of course, we're sponsored by Creative Cockades. Creative Cockades, Miss Heather over there is doing a fantastic job with her research and documentation, her quality workmanship, and her superb personal customer service. Visit her website. Just Google Creative Cockades. And in fact, this upcoming weekend, I will be giving out about 120 of them at the Mississippi Division Reunion. She did our medals this year. Like I said, she does a lot of research, a great bunch of things for the SCV, including, let me see if I can upload. She's got some great Jeff Davis ones. I thought I had it saved, but I didn't, but I'll just pull up her site really quickly. But she has agreed to sponsor us this season. So we thank her so much for doing that. Let me find them. North American. Let me go ahead and share my screen so y'all can see. Present. Share screen. Share. Here we go. So you go to her site, click North American, and under Confederate, she's got those that you can put in your Southern hero, where you can even upload a picture of like your camp namesake. She also has the heroines, the different flags of the Confederacy, the different states. So she's got Alabama. She's got her own little book with the research. Alabama, Arkansas, Florida's looks really good. Another Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi's, Missouri, the Ruffin one based off the one that was on his hat, Tennessee, another Tennessee, Texas, another Virginia, North Carolina. She's got the tartan. She's got one for the OCR. She's got this one that I love that is a model of one that was given at a UCV reunion. Irish Pride, Kirby Smith, the Jefferson Davis, our president, the rosette of that one, Washington Artillery, General Mrs. Forrest, the South Carolina Big Red Flag, Winnie Davis, who of course was the daughter of President Davis. And in fact, if we go and we click on the Jefferson Davis, and then she has so many and with so much great research in them. One way to do this, and if I can spell Davis correctly.
He was just Mississippi Division commander for 4 years.
Well, I hit the wrong button. There's one based off of what he could have had or what he did have for a campaign cockade. So So I appreciate everything that she has done by sponsoring us, sponsoring our breaks. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with a review of the life of Jefferson Davis.
There is a place nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain, surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost, stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. A place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
Yes. You gonna mention it? Or you just gonna bring it up?
Just want to throw it out there because our poor commander-in-chief works so hard. He will be on Look Around Florida tomorrow night with the Florida man, Sean McFall, and he'll be on Commander's Comments this Thursday on, of course, the SCV chat network. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Thank you. And he'll also be at the Mississippi Division reunion this week, where he will definitely not be welcomed with a T-Rex puppet. Thank you, Commander Boshears, for all that you do. You have worked extremely hard for this organization, and the thing is I know you're just getting started. So thank you for all you do, sir. Cannot wait to have you on Thursday, and cannot wait to have you on Tuesday on Sean's show
For his last official Commander's Comments. Because we're going to do something special for the July one. No.
That broke me.
So anyway, we are talking about, of course, the only president of the Confederacy this evening, President Jefferson Phineas Davis, the hero of mine and a hero of Moose's. For those that don't know, Moose serves on the combined boards and chairman of the board of or president of the board of trustees at Beauvoir, Jefferson Davis's last home. A very good museum if y'all ever are near the Gulf Coast and need to spend some time or buy some Confederate items. Go to Beauvoir. Visit Beauvoir.
Please.
Visit Beauvoir.org. And so I'm going to let Moose do most of the talking this evening. He's done a lot of research. So I'm just going to sit back and let him talk. And I'm going to jump in whenever he messes up.
Oh, great. I'm glad we're setting the bar so low. But yeah, I want to talk about Jefferson Davis's life before the war tonight, because I don't think a lot of people either talk about or realize just how much of a historic life he had before the war. I mean, what he did before the war between the states is outstanding. He is in American history. He wins over the hearts of all the Mississippians and did a lot of great stuff. But of course, Jefferson Phineas Davis was born.
Hey, question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why does Daddy name him that?
Jefferson?
No.
Phineas, I don't know. Jefferson, I know is that.
Hey, I know something you don't know. He was named that because it's Latin for finished, as in I'm done having kids.
Yeah, well, let's see here on my notes. he was the 10th child of his family. Bless their heart.
Yeah, I'd be done having children too.
Dr. Mitchum, I do agree. I do agree he is an heir to Thomas Jefferson and Calhoun. An intellectual heir. I agree with that, Dr. Mitchum. All right, so he was born June 3rd, 1808 in Christian County, Kentucky. But he spent the majority of his times in Mississippi. That's where he grew up. That's why we say he's ours. He is definitely a Mississippian. And if you don't believe that, just wait for a bit later in the show. Of course, he is the son of a Revolutionary War veteran. His father, let's see here.
Samuel,
yeah.
Who is buried at Beauvoir and is the only person in the Beauvoir Cemetery that has a federal flag. And even then, it's not a 50-star U.S. flag. It's a Betsy Ross flag flying over his grave.
And I always figured that was cool as a child. That always caught my eye when I went to Beauvoir when I was just a lad. Dang nabbit. Commanders Bostiers and Carl are now going at it in the comments. But in 1835, he married Sarah Knox Taylor.
You are skipping over a lot of his life.
Oh, yeah. Do
you want
to go back?
I was going to say, do you want me to fill in?
You can fill in.
Okay.
I thought we were going to go back and forth tonight.
Okay. So Jeff was the youngest of 10 children. His dad was Samuel Emory Davis. Jefferson later on has a son that he names after him, who ends up, I believe, passing away in the White House while in 1864. Anyway, Sam Sr., he served in the Continental Army during the American Revolution. He received a land grant because of his service in what's now Washington, Georgia. He met his wife, who Jane was her name, but they met around 1793-ish. Or 1783-ish. Got married, so that was during the war, while he was serving in South Carolina. 1793, though, they moved to Kentucky, and they're there. That's where they are in 1808 when he's born. And it's at the family homestead in Davisburg, a village that Samuel had actually established, and that later is now, Fairview, Kentucky, which is very, very interesting to point out. That's one thing that Carl and I talked about this past weekend, is the fact that, it was, and we've talked about on the show, it was Southerners that, left from the original 13 colonies, moving west in search for land, and came in and, settled these areas and made these areas hospitable for European settlers. And then the Yankees moved in because we'd already done all the hard work. But in 1810, the Davis family moves to Bayou Teche in Louisiana. And then less than a year later, they moved to Woodville, Mississippi, which is, just south of Natchez. If you're geographically trying to locate it, there Samuel began growing cotton, and they built a house called Rosemont, which is still there to this day. During the War of 1812, 3 of Jeff's brothers actually served in the military. And around the age of 5, Jefferson Davis started going to school. And of course, Woodville, even to this day, Woodville is very rural. It really is. Yes, Jack, he did. But he began getting a very rudimentary education at a small, typical one-room schoolhouse. But about the age of 8, his father sent him with Major Thomas Hines, who was a hero of the War of 1812. He commanded a company of dragoons, Hines did, down there battling New Orleans with Andy Jackson. Hinds County, Mississippi, where I currently am sitting right now, is named after him. But he was sent to St. Thomas's College, which was a Catholic preparatory school ran by the Dominicans in Springfield, Kentucky. And also at this time, weirdly enough, Davis, who was raised as an Episcopalian, wants to go and convert to Catholicism at such a young age. Past chaplain in chief and Mississippi Division chaplain Cecil Fayard wrote a wonderful little pamphlet on the booklet, really, of the education or the religious aspects of Davis's life. But in 1818, about 8 years later, Davis returns back to Mississippi, where he studies briefly at Jefferson's Military College or Jefferson Academy. If you've seen the movie The Horse Soldiers, that's the academy where the cadets come from. It's outside of Natchez. It's where the first Mississippi territorial legislature was held and statehood legislature was held. And still to this day, there's a spot on the wall that Davis either carved his name into or signed. And Mississippi Department of Archives and History has that. I've seen it. It's pretty cool, especially because it's rumored. I haven't been able to prove it, but one of the websites dealing with my family genealogy is that one of my ancestors was a professor at that school at that time. Like I said, haven't been able to fully prove it, but he then attended Wilkinson County Academy near Woodville for about 5 years, Transylvania University in Lexington in 1823. And in 1824, while at Transylvania University in Lexington, he learned that his father passed away. And when his father passed, he had gone into debt, and so what he did was he sold Rosemont to Jefferson Davis's older brother Joseph Emory Davis, who already had a large estate called Davis Bend, about 15 miles south of Vicksburg, which is north of Natchez. And Joseph who was 23 years older than Davis, became a surrogate father to young Jefferson Davis. In fact, Joseph is the one that works on getting Davis his appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point. Have I surpassed where you were on your notes so far, Moose?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're almost there.
Well, it's at West Point in 1824 where Jefferson Davis becomes classmates with two guys who, of course, studying Confederate military history we know of, Albert Sidney Johnston and Leonidas Polk. It's during his time there, he had a very good college experience. I'll put it like that. He frequently challenged the academy's discipline. In fact, he was court-martialed in his plebe year for drinking in a nearby tavern, which would have been Benny Haven's Tavern. He was found guilty of it, but he was pardoned. In his sophomore year, his next year, he was placed under house arrest for his role in the eggnog riot during Christmas of 1826, but he wasn't dismissed. If you've never heard that or saw that, or read about that, look at it. It is a huge. It's a very funny story about the eggnog riot. Second only to Louis Armistead breaking a plate over. I think it was Richard Ewell's head, and that's why he got expelled from the academy. But it's one of those funny little tidbits of history you got to read about. Well, when he graduates 23rd in a class of 33, and he's assigned to the 1st U.S. Infantry Regiment. He fights in the Black Hawk War. And it's also at the time when he meets Zachary Taylor. You want to continue on?
No, you can. I'll just point out that he did go on. I think I already said this in 1835 to marry Zachary Taylor's daughter, Sarah Knox Taylor.
Yeah.
But-
Getting to that. But again, Black Hawk Wars, when he meets Zachary Taylor, and probably when he met Sarah Knox, Davis was regularly sickly through his life, and being assigned up in the Michigan territories, especially around Forts Crawford and Winnebago. And those harsh northern winters, he suffered from pneumonia and bronchitis a lot. So yeah, he was actually sent back home to Mississippi on furlough at one point. But during the Black Hawk War, when Black Hawk was captured, Davis was actually charged with escorting him for detention in St. Louis. And Black Hawk actually stated that Davis treated him with kindness. After that, in his return to Fort Crawford in 1833, that's when they got married. And it's funny to, or it's important to mention that when David asked Taylor if he could marry Sarah, he refused.
Oh yeah.
But you know, they did anyway. So later on, in 18, what you would say, 35?
Yeah, 1835.
So also in 1835, Davis was court-martialed for insubordination, but he was acquitted. He requested a furlough. Immediately after it ended, he tendered his resignation and came back home to Mississippi. There he began being a cotton planter, and he helped his brother develop Davis's Bend into the Hurricane Plantation, which was about 1,700 acres there around Vicksburg. Joseph eventually gave him about 800 acres, and Davis renamed that section to Briarfield, which became his home. Of course, as we've mentioned, Davis and Sarah Taylor get married, and shortly after,
3 months.
yeah, exactly. They both become ill with malaria. And I believe that while ill with malaria, Davis actually, that's when he loses his sight, and I believe it's his left eye. But Sarah dies. Davis barely survives, and he kind of goes into a depression almost for a little while. But Davis then began, because he's a widower at such a young age, he begins to throw himself into the running of Briarfield, but as well as intellectually developing. So he begins reading about politics and the law and economics at Joseph's house. Again, Joseph being that surrogate father because Samuel had passed away. And he begins to continue getting engaged in politics more and more, especially benefiting from his brother's mentorship and political influence. Davis began really getting involved around the 1840s by attending different meetings around Vicksburg, and he actually served as a delegate to the Democratic Party's convention in Jackson, and around 1842. And 1 week before the state's election in November of 1843, he was chosen to be a Democratic candidate for the Mississippi House of Representatives from Warren County, which is where Vicksburg. But Davis lost that election.
But he did go on to win it.
Yeah, later on, of course. So in early 1844, Davis then meets, through introduction from his older brother, who was a friend of the Howell family, he meets Verena Banks Howell, later, spoiler alert, to be the daughter, or not the daughter, but his second wife. She becomes Verena Howell Davis. Howell was 18 years old at the time that they met. Yeah. In fact, Joseph arranges for Jeff Davis, to spend the Christmas season at the Howell house in the Christmas season of, I believe, 18 44, 43, 44. Yeah, 44.
Because Davis wastes no time, and that's also
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, he didn't. But when true love strikes, it strikes because within a month of meeting, Davis, who was 35, and again Verena, who was 18, they became engaged despite her parents' initial concerns about his age and his politics. Again, Davis is at this time is a Democrat when the vast majority of the planter class of the South were Whigs. And in fact, he had been a elector, one of the 6 presidential electors for the Electoral College for the 1844 presidential election. And again, Davis has a rough time because second wife, the parents don't like him either.
That's hard.
but still, they do eventually get married on February 26th of 1845. They would eventually have 6 children. Samuel Emory Davis, named for his father, or Jefferson Davis's father, born in 1852, who died of an undiagnosed disease 2 years later. Margaret Howell, who was born in 1855, who married, raised a family, and lived to be 54. Jefferson Davis Jr., who was born in 1857, who died of yellow fever at 1821. I apologize. It was Joseph Evan Davis, who is the one that passed away at the White House. I apologize. It was Joseph E. Davis, and I should know that because I've got an award named after him. But Joseph was named for his older brother, and Evan from his mother's maiden name. He's the one that died of accidental fall at the Confederate White House. William Howell Davis, who was born in 1861 but died of diphtheria at the age of 10, and Verena Ann, who remained single and lived to be 43.
Do you want to talk about his adopted son? I know that's dipping out of the territory we wanted to talk about, but
we'll get into that a little bit later. And yeah, Dr. Mitchum, you are right. Verena and Jefferson did have early marital
problems,
differences. Anyway, so in July of 1845 is when Davis really gets, finally gets up there in politics. He becomes a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives. And he ran on a platform emphasizing a strict constitutionalist view of the Constitution, states' rights, tariff reductions, and opposition to a national bank. And he won that election and entered the 29th Congress. During his time in Congress, he opposed using federal monies for internal improvements, which he believed would undermine the autonomy of the states, and it did. And he supported the annexation of Oregon, but through a peaceful compromise with Britain. And when the Congress had to vote, he voted in favor of a war with Mexico. And Davis eventually goes ahead and resigns from Congress to take up the position of colonel of the 1st Mississippi Regiment, also known as the Mississippi Rifles. And because of his political prominence and everything like that, Davis was able to get the regiment armed with the new percussion rifle, which still bears the name, the Mississippi Rifle, instead of the smoothbore muskets that were still being used by other units. Davis and his regiment was assigned to the Army under his former father-in-law, Zachary Taylor. And Davis distinguished himself throughout many battles, such as the Battle of Monterey, which he led a charge, which Monterey is an absolutely beautiful city. But he led a charge that took the fort of La Teneria, I believe is how you pronounce it. He went back home for 2 months. Then he goes back to Mexico and he fights at Buena Vista. And one of the funny things about Jefferson Davis's life that comes on later on, Buena Vista is Spanish for beautiful view, and Beauvoir is French for beautiful view. So where he really gets his name or his military paralysis means the same thing. Davis was actually wounded at Buena Vista on February 22nd, 1847. But Davis did the Mexican army still used lancers at this time. It was under the leadership of the Napoleon of the West, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, same one from the Texas War of Independence. But they send the lancers charging at the 1st Mississippi Regiment, and Davis, I can just see him on horseback, bleeding from a wound in his heel, and riding on there. And he shouts out, and this is kind of the unofficial motto of the Mississippi Division: "Stand fast, Mississippians." And they do that. They stand fast, and they pour volley into the Mexicans, and eventually break them. So he did a great job with that.
One of the favorite things about I just want to jump in here real quick is General Taylor. After this, it's when he changed his view on Davis, saying about his late daughter, "My daughter, sir, was a better judge of men than I was."
Yeah.
I mean, that had to make Jefferson feel good. I mean,
yeah.
He's probably, I mean, it's still pretty recent. I mean, from his wife's passing. I mean, about 10 years, not recent, but, still fresh for someone who was in deep love like he was.
Yeah, so Davis's prowess, or his bravery, his story of his bravery, eventually makes it back to the United States. It makes it all the way up to the White House, where Polk. I don't know where I got Pierce from. Anyway, Polk eventually offers him a federal commission as a brigadier general, but Davis declines. Because he argued the point that he could not directly command militia, which the Mississippi Rifles were, because the U.S. Constitution gives the power of appointing militia officers to the state, not to the federal government. But instead of taking that, he decides to take an appointment by Mississippi's governor to fill a vacancy in the U.S. Senate. So again, making power moves left and right. Davis took his seat into. Say again, over.
I said a true statesman. He would rather stand with his people than the federal government.
Yeah. Anyway, Davis took his seat in the Senate in 1847. And at that point, he was also made the regent for the Smithsonian Institute. And that's one thing that people often forget, is that if it were not for Jefferson Davis and the things that he did, the Smithsonian Institution would not be, it would not be here today. Davis is the one that morphed it into the museum system and the institution that it is. So yeah, that's one huge thing, one huge positive impact that Davis's career had for us. So that's good.
While also in this early part of his Senate career, because he'll come back to that, he was also chairman of military affairs, where he completely also helped strengthen our military.
Yeah. Fast forwarding to that later 1848, of course, it's another presidential election. And guess who's running for president in 1848, Harrison?
Who's running for president?
His ex-daddy-in-law, Zachary Taylor, who was a Whig, and Davis is still being a Democrat. He actually chose not to campaign against him. So yeah. At that point, though, Davis returned. So after the Senate session following Taylor's inauguration ended in 1849, Davis returned back home to Mississippi, but was reelected by the state legislature for another 6-year term. You have to remember, this is before the passage of the 17th Amendment. So Davis is thought of so much by the state legislature, because we did not have direct election senators, that they sent him back to Washington. So, and also around this time, he was approached by the Venezuelan adventurer Nicarzo Lopez, and wanted him to lead a filibuster expedition to liberate Cuba from Spain. Now, a lot of people talk about the Democratic Party of the antebellum Democratic Party. Talk about anyway, saying that a lot of the key leaders in the South wanted to take away certain South American territories to the colonialism, for lack of a better term, to push out the colonial rules and expand the South's influence in there. But and that's what this Venezuelan adventurer wanted him to do. But Davis turned down the offer by saying it was inconsistent with his duty as a senator. So yeah, now, Dr. Mincham, you mentioned John C. Calhoun. Was Davis the inheritor of John C. Calhoun? Well, look at what happens when Calhoun dies in the spring of 1850. Davis essentially becomes the senatorial spokesperson of the South, taking the role of Calhoun when he dies. So yeah. He continued on. He was involved with the Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, trying to get through a lot of my notes. Trying to get my tea as well, just because we don't want to run out of time. Gets a chance to run for governor. Accepted the nomination, resigned from the Senate, but barely loses. He was supposed to be reappointed to a Senate seat by the outgoing governor, but he decided not to. He decided that he'd just settle down at Briarfield. Although he did remain politically active, attending the Democratic Convention in January of 1852. He campaigned for Franklin Pierce during the presidential election, and that ended up paying off. That's where Pierce's name came in my mind, because when Pierce is elected, he appoints Jefferson Davis as Secretary of War.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to pull up on a major accomplishment he got during that time, and my computer's not letting me pull it up. It's not working.
Well, during that time, he begins to during his time as Secretary of War is when he meets Judah P. Benjamin, actually at a party. So there's the fun little fact for you. But Davis's big thing at that point is he begins to try to modernize, for that era, the American military. He begins to pushing for expanding the size of the regular army. He said it was too small and the salaries were too meager, which Congress agreed to authorize 4 new regiments and increased its pay scale.
Improved training protocols.
Yeah, include training protocols. He shifted from smoothbore muskets to production of rifles. He again, the Hardy's tactics, which were originally published, were done under him. He assisted. Go ahead.
He established the medical corps as well. Corps.
As a silent.
Oh well, I had to mispronounce something. We were getting too far into the episode. Yeah.
While in that time, he also assists with the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854 by getting Pierce to endorse it before it came up for a vote. It repealed the Missouri Compromise, which again he did not like, and really began pushing popular sovereignty, which is something he's always passed. State sovereignty, pauper sovereignty, almost the same thing. Let the people of the state determine their own ways forward. And the passage of this bill wound up leading to the demise of the Whig Party, and then the rise of the Republican Party. The Democratic nomination in 1856 went to James Buchanan, though, And knowing that his term was over with the Pierce administration ended in 1857, Davis chose to run again for the Senate once more and entered into the Senate March 4th, 1857. Weirdly enough,
real quick before you
go
kind
ahead.
of get into the Senate, because people kind of really don't realize this. Not only did he do all this amazing stuff, and I can't remember the exact person that said this, but they said he was one of the most effective in that role since the 1820s as Secretary of War. And also, he helped renovate the Capitol. The Capitol that we know today, the Congress building, is what it is because of Jefferson Davis.
Yep, the big old dome.
Yeah, the big old dome, the statue of, I think it's called the Statue of Freedom at the top. He is the one that helped design it and finalized it. And again, the Capitol had been going on for a long time, that project. And Jefferson was finally the one that stepped in and got everything finalized. I don't know if it was done or finished during his time.
No, it was not. It was not. In fact, when Lincoln was inaugurated outside the Capitol in 1861, it was still being done, and Lincoln would not cease. Well, I'm not going to stop it because just like building our union, it is not done. Some type of bull crap like that. He said.
Yeah, but he personally oversaw the
start of it.
Yeah, and the architect of it. The reason our Capitol is so beautiful is because a Southerner had his hand in it.
Right. Adam, you remembered, you made me remember the fact that I was forgetting. Thank you, Adam.
I don't think that was in either of our notes.
No, it was, because how can you not talk about Jefferson Davis without talking about the Camel Corps experience?
Very true.
Or experiment. And yes, Davis was instrumental, or he was the one that started it. He, having spent time, in Mexico and in the Southwest during the Mexican War, thought that it'd be a great idea to bring camels over from Northern Africa and try to, use them instead of pack mules. And I believe it was up into the 1950s, there were still descendants of those camels. One such camel was in Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1863, when about this time of year in 1863, when some murdering descendant of George Spencer decided to shoot said camel, and we had him. Because kill our mascot, fine, but we'll kill you back. But first, we're going to eat him.
Well, I mean, what year of the war was it again?
63.
Vicksburg was struggling in 63.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was. So, but yeah, that is that's Davis's life up until the breakout of the war. Davis is he's a representative or delegate to the Democratic Convention, instrumental in the split of the Northern and Southern Democrats, which of course leads to the Lincoln election and secession. And when Mississippi seceded, he gave a very very long, eloquent, beautiful speech that is way too long, and I don't feel like reading it. And Moose doesn't. I know you have it pulled up. We're not reading it.
Notes?
No, I wasn't looking at your notes. I was looking at my notes, but I looked at your notes earlier.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and anyway. Go ahead and finish. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to read it. Instead, I'm going to read an excerpt from a speech that he gave in 1858, before the Mississippi legislature. Davis said that when Mississippi seceded, and he had to deliver his farewell, that it was one of the saddest days of his life. And yeah, I can imagine so too, that this is a man who spent most of his career either fighting for this nation or helped building this nation and trying to keep the nation together, despite and I use the term nation very loosely, but keeping the country together. But finally seeing everything that he's tried to do to maintain peace and maintain the maintain the peace and the equilibrium stuff and the principles that his own father fought for, being a real son of the American Revolution. Finally being torn asunder from the actions and the belligerent actions of a usurping, power-hungry people, north of the Mason-Dixon line. My views and opinions that are still that way today. My views and opinions. I could see that finally that it having to come to this, because he's tried everything that he can do, but finally it's just too much. They're wanting too much. They're demanding too much. Yeah, I could see the sadness. I could see him being sad. I can see him that that it being a depressing thing, because holding with the ideals of the Republic, but still, 1858, Jefferson Davis said this, and I absolutely love it. He said, "I have looked with veneration on those stars and stripes and recorded the original size of our political family, and with pride upon the constellation as marking the family's growth. I glory in the position which Mississippi Star holds in the group. But sooner than see its luster dimmed, sooner than see it degraded from its present equality, I would tear it from its place to be set even with the perilous ridge, or on the perilous ridge of battle, as a sign round which Mississippi's best and bravest should gather to the harvest home of death." So again, Davis is saying that, and again, why it would be so sad for him, that he loves the United States. He's proud to be a part of the United States. He's worked to build these United States. But instead of seeing it being diminished, instead of seeing it being subjugated, instead of it being seen the liberties, or the civil liberties and everything else that he has worked for and that Mississippians have worked for in this voluntary union, instead of seeing that being spat upon, torn upon, and the South being dragged down, and those principles which he loved and which we love also, hey, take that. Instead of seeing that, he would rather see it removed, and if need be, to fight for the independence. And that's what happens. Mississippi secedes, the rest of the South secedes. In fact, when Mississippi secedes, Jefferson Davis is appointed as adjutant general, which in Mississippi is the highest rank in our militia, or our home guard, or whatever you want to call it. The commander of Mississippi's troops, much like Robert E. Lee was in Virginia, Jefferson Davis was for Mississippi, and he was content to do that. He was content of being the one over Mississippi, the commanding general over Mississippi's troops. And then, of course, he's at Briarfield while troops are getting mustered, and he finds out he's elected as president of the Confederacy. Provincial president of the Confederacy. No, he did not. He said something to Varina. I can't remember exactly what he said, but Varina's, let me see if I can pull up that quote.
But he did not want that at all. Again, as GCB has said, he was really kind of almost, I wouldn't say hoping for, but that's where his heart was to be the guy over the military in Mississippi.
Yeah, Varina said or wrote in her diary that the messenger with the notification that Mr. Davis had been elected president found him in our guarding assistant to make rose cuttings. When reading the telegram, he looked so grieved that I feared some evil had befallen our family. He wanted to serve on the field of battle. He did not want to serve, in a political role for it. But like Shelby Foote said, he did the best that he could with the hands that he was dealt. So yeah, but if you look at it, especially with what we've talked about, on the show, that the history of the South is more from 1861 to 1865.
Right.
Now, that is a key defining moment in our lives as Southerners, just like it was a key defining moment in the life of Jefferson Davis. Excuse me. Davis was more than that. He was a statesman, which is somebody. My definition of a statesman is somebody in political office who is working towards the beneficial future of mankind or the people he represents. Different than a politician. A politician studies his next election. Davis proved time and again that he was a statesman. He was a forward-thinking man with all the improvements that he made to the military as well as to the Smithsonian Institute, various other things. He was a patriot. To sum him, you know what? That's it. He was a patriot. That's the best way to describe him. The Civil War Journal back in the early 90s, whenever they came out with that program on the History Channel, the biography episode on him is called Jefferson Davis, the Traitor President, and that's not the case because treason as defined in the U.S. Constitution is, and I'm paraphrasing, making an act of war against those united or against them. Let me see if I can pull that up. Carl, if you can beat me to it.
Hurry, Carl, hurry.
Yeah, levying war against them or in adhering their enemies, giving them aid or comfort. So treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their adhering to their enemies. Them, there, that plural, we're plurality of states, not a one solid plurality of states. We are they, not an it. But still, they call him a traitor, but no, he was a patriot to the original founding of the original founding principles, and his life is evidently proven of that.
Amen. I don't think I could have said it any better way myself. A true American patriot, and stealing a word from Dr. Mitchum, an heir of the principles that our founding fathers passed down from their generation to his. As many people have said, and we've said on the show before, Lincoln destroyed, or at least tried his best to destroy.
No, he didn't try his best. You were right the first time. He destroyed.
Well, here's my saying. He tried his best, because I'm going to quote Jefferson Davis in the show. He tried his best to destroy true American founding principles. And he's done a great job. Let's not sugarcoat it. He did a great job. He is the greatest politician. Yeah. I'll give him that dishonor. He is the greatest politician in American history. But just like Jefferson Davis says, truth grinded into what is salt or ash.
Well, I tell you what, Harrison. Hold on a second. Hold on. It's into dust, I believe.
It's into dust. I couldn't remember if it was ash or salt for some reason.
It's into dust.
I think we already have it on here.
It's truth crushed.
Truth crushed into dust will still rise to the top. And I think our founding principles are like that as well.
We're both wrong. Truth crushed to earth is truth still, and like a seed will rise again.
And I truly think that's the same for the founding principles and the true patriots like Jefferson Davis. I don't think what they have done for our freedom will ever be forgotten. And I think it's going to continue to inspire us. And I don't know if there's any better way to describe Jefferson Davis, but a true patriot to the founding of the free and independent states.
What Carl said.
That's That's the best way we can always put our stuff. What Carl said. Yeah, they would. They would definitely lose. No, they all knew what they were doing. Well, let's not sugarcoat it. They all knew what this meant, what the war between the states meant. And it was a power game to stop the constitutional republic that our founders passed down to us, the free and independent states, and make it one nation. As the more I learn, the more I hate the term one nation, because we are not a nation. We are a
well. Let me go ahead and let me go ahead and tell you this. I mentioned this to Carl, and I'm gonna piss some people off with this, but I don't care.
Great. You're at that part.
So, have you ever studied Afghanistan?
No, I can't say I actually have.
Okay, so Afghanistan is it's not a nation, in the sense that people think of it as a nation. It is a conglomeration of tribes that, because the British Empire, were forced together, and they historically have not gotten along, still don't get along. But they are not an independent, or a collective people. And we are a lot like Afghanistan in that sense, is that we are a separate people, especially us in the South, with a different culture and value system than those of the North. Dating all the way back to the 1600s, the things that make us different is clear and evident if you study the social history of that area. Whereas they were more in favor of controlling the individual than the individual controlling themselves. They were very pluralistic, communal people, to the point where they had, for every 10 houses in a neighborhood, there are 10 to 12 houses in a neighborhood, they would have a selectman whose job it was to go around and, okay, well, you're not living your best, Puritan life, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z to you. And it's very much like almost like what happened with COVID up north, when you see people who are, oh, he doesn't have his mask, I'm going to call the police on him, or he doesn't have his shot, I'm going to call the police on him, or he's having a family reunion with 11 people, but we're only allowed to have 10 in our homes, I'm going to call the police on him. Again, that idea, is still prevalent to the day of life controlling and everything like that. I'm trying not to give too much away from our book review, but hey, guess what? Guess what? If you join Patreon, you can hear my full review of insert book name here that talks about that.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. Yep. You came this close to cutting in with what you were saying.
I know.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Please share this out. Let's get out the fact that Jefferson Davis
was a patriot.
Amen. He was a true American patriot. The America that our founding fathers wanted.
Hey, what you doing tomorrow night?
Well, I'm going to be watching Look Around Florida with Sean McFall and his guest, the Commander-in-Chief, Jason Boshears. I picked up on it this time.
Good.
I picked up on it. I'm learning. But this Thursday, I will be producing Commander's Comments. We will have, of course, Commander-in-Chief Jason Boshears on, and host Chief of Heritage Operations Ron Kennedy.
still send in your stuff. We're actually going to play catch up with some of the stuff that's been emailed in by posting it on Facebook throughout the week. Isn't that right, Moose?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna play catch up with some of the stuff that we either covered it last week or is sitting in the inbox.
Yes, go check that out.
10% off,
please. And let's see here. Is that everything? I think we got everything.
I believe so.
All right, yeah. Then there's something that needs to stay at the Capitol. I couldn't resist not throwing that in there. It does say Mississippi, so that is the debate. He was a Mississippian. Also, how do I want to? I don't want to go in the end credits yet. There is something I want to play.
Okay.
Simply because he can hit me this week because he will be at the Mississippi Division reunion. So I am going to play one of our reels real quick, and that is how we're officially ending this. So welcome back to the madness that is SCV Chat.